Okay, so this one's going to go by really quick. I'm with George and Tony. I'm going to say dossiers or museum curators. So I got a unique experience. I got to keep the camera oriented a certain way to give you guys the best benefit of what we're seeing. So I'm in a hangar, a historic hangar that actually, and if I say something that I can edit it out, they'll let me know, but it's in a historic hangar where our first operational jet was actually assembled. I believe the parts came from, you said Buffalo, New York? Came from Buffalo, New York, was trained here to what is now Edwards Air Force Base in the hangar that we're standing in when we started moving into the jet age. George made a good analogy that if you're interested in like Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hill, and the Wright brothers, that was the breaking ground for controlled manned flight. This was breaking ground for controlled jet flight going into the jet era. So right behind me, and I'm probably going to say some of the things wrong, George, but so right behind me is a dual cockpit F-16. I know there were some details that I think this was number one? First one operationally used. This is what I was showing you in the museum. This is a mock-up of the X-15. When I was telling you guys that one panel I saw at the older museum back in 90, actually it was like 88, 89, and then it's in the current museum. This is a mock-up, but this is a full scale of what it came from, which is an experimental jet. Now I made the assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, I made the assumption that this was maybe a predecessor dynamic to the SR-71 because the cockpit looks like an SR-71 cockpit kind of.
Two different aircraft doing two different things.
Okay.
It's built out of different materials in two different styles. Titanium skin compared to a stainless steel honeycomb on the
SR-71.
Excuse me, I'm thinking B-70. Titanium honeycomb on the SR-71. Titanium just skin on this thing.
Was this thing flying before the SR-71?
First flight was 1959, so it was really just about the same time.
Okay. So then moving forward, we have a group of people coming in here. I want to head them off, but there's an F-117 that I've never been in the military 31 years. I've never gotten this close to an F-117, so I don't want to miss that opportunity. But right behind me is this is a NASA. It's a NASA aircraft.
Its last owner was NASA, but these were tested by the Air Force. We have both F-16 XLs. These are the big wing F-16s that were built in competition for the F-15 Strike Eagle to compete against that. The Strike Eagle won the competition, but these airframes were great test vehicles, and so they were both turned over to NASA, and the museum now has both of them.
Now, to the untrained eye, even myself, being in the Air Force for many years, is it fair to say that if you see one with a single tail is a 16, dual tails are 15s? Am I correct by saying that?
Sure.
And
15's a larger airplane.
The 15's larger. Sure. 15's larger. And the 15's a dual engine, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And this is a single?
Yeah, but the bomb load capability on both, I think, were comparable. I don't know the exact numbers, but this thing
might have been fuel load.
Yeah.
And the Air Force demonstration team, the
Thunderbirds.
The Thunderbirds, I almost said Blue Angels. All my Air Force friends are going to kill me for that one. So, and they fly the 16s.
The regular F-16s.
The regular 16s.
Yeah, these are special. These have a very large wing. In fact, if you look at the front of the aircraft from the nose on, you'll see the wing is actually different on both sides.
Really?
NASA was doing some interesting experiments with this.
So the dynamic of the wing is different?
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys can see that, and that's one of the things about these museums. I mean, even somebody like me, you can still learn a lot. Don't ever pass up a museum if you're into aviation, because you'll learn something new out of all of them. Okay, so this is something that really I wanted to come see. So that's the F-117 stealth fighter, which I'm not sure when it came into production, but this was really breaking technology and news for me. You see these flying over sporting events, like at the beginning of the Super Bowl sometimes, or even the Rose Parade. They were developed right here in the Antelope Valley. Am I correct on that?
This is a prototype. This is the fourth prototype, Scorpion 4. Belonged to the 410th Test Squadron out of Plant 42, called the Baja Scorpions, and that's why they were all given the name Scorpion. This one was the first one to receive the full-on coatings. That was part of its test program. And so truly, this is the world's first stealth airplane. This is the first one that actually disappeared from radar with the coatings and all attached.
And I could touch it, right?
Yeah, the coatings are gone, actually. It's
So-
a little dirty, so you're going to get your hands dirty.
Oh, I don't care. So
We
that's,
got not only a lot of dust, we got bird poop, and we got to get this thing into a real museum.
and that's basically that's the armor of it. I mean, that's the skin of it. No, I mean, I've seen them at air shows, but you can't get near them because every air show I've been to, they're cordoned off with security police around them. So this is one thing I wanted to ask you, George, and I kind of mentioned it in some of the other videos I've done. There's the front of it, but these planes behind you, the one with the wings that fold up, or the helicopter you guys have with the blades, are they designed that way specifically for aircraft carriers, or will every branch of service use them?
So the aircraft that we have in the collection all represent flight-tested Edwards. So this particular case, the F-3D Sky Knight took its first flight, even though it was a Douglas airplane from El Segundo. It was trucked up here, it was assembled, and the first time it left the ground was here at Edwards Air Force Base. Same with the A-3D Sky Warrior. At the time, Douglas had their own facility on base. In fact, that building still exists, it's still being used. But this is where they brought their planes up to do their very first flight test. And so that's what we have here. These airplanes are representative of aircraft that were first flown here. Now, in the case of the A3D, that airframe was actually here at one time on a test program. So we try to limit our planes so that the plane itself, the airframe itself, has history here at Edwards. That's what makes this collection so unique. Every aircraft we own actually flew here by tail number. In the corner, you've got the Boeing Phantom I, which is a high altitude surveillance unmanned aircraft, and we brought that here. Now we've got pieces of that thing all over the facility here because the wings are 150 feet across.
The one that has like a triangle looking?
Correct. That's the tail, and then the thing that looks like a giant Easter egg. That's the main fuselage.
Oh, jeez.
This aircraft is actually fueled by liquid hydrogen. And so Boeing was done with this. We've got that on loan currently from Boeing. We also have the X-48 and the X-36 from Boeing. And ultimately, we're looking at securing some other test vehicles from Boeing as well, because they all actually flew here.
So that was unmanned operational flying thing.
Yep.
Never even heard of it or seen anything like it before. I walked by it, it looked like a big submarine.
65,000 feet in altitude, four-day loiter time.
So just because the Marines or the Navy may use it, there's a good likelihood that could be tested right out here.
Yeah, in fact, the Army had a test facility here. The Navy used to test a lot of aircraft here. Edwards was the test facility for the nation, and still is to a large degree. So it's not, our collection has a lot of diverse aircraft, because that's just the nature of what we used to do here. And in most cases, not all, but in most cases, we have the actual airframe that was actually tested here.
You're giving me some really good details on this one when we first walked in, and I walked right past it to ask you this question.
Now, the P-80 Shooting Star, this particular one was built in '44. We've got a photograph of, we believe, this aircraft sitting on the ramp here in front of the building. In '46, this actual airframe was used for the U.S.'s first transcontinental jet speed run. It flew from Long Beach to LaGuardia in 4 hours and 15 minutes. Also in '46, it was the first jet airplane in U.S. history to actually carry airmail. They loaded about 850 pieces of specially marked airmail in the nose and flew a circuit, and I'm not really clear as to which cities it stopped in, but we found some of those pieces of airmail on eBay.
Oh, no kidding.
Now we have the actual airmail that this plane actually carries.
You have some. You have some now.
We do. Tony found them on eBay. Yeah, we purchased them.
Does the I don't know how this would work, but does the National Air and Space Museum at the mall in D.C., did they ever try to get stuff from you guys saying, hey, we would like to have that here instead of there?
Technically, this is all owned by the Air Force Museum, and the thing we've got going for us is, first of all, it's very expensive to move an airplane. But second is places like the Smithsonian are full up. They don't really have room for a lot of these things. And they've got their own historic version of the aircraft. Our focus is, again, Edwards. That's what makes this collection so unique. These aircraft all flew here at Edwards.
So, and then the history of Edwards was originally Muroc Dry Lake, Muroc Army Airfield. Okay, so hey, so we're gonna wrap it up real quick. You get the opportunity, if you know somebody in the military get sponsored, come out here, check out Edwards Air Force Base. They're one type aircraft that you'll never see anywhere else. Thanks again, and you guys have a great day.